Every country has an obligation to protect its borders and its citizens, particularly one as expansive and as generous as the United States. Now, for too long, immigration law was ignored, frankly, and basically unenforced. Obama tried to kind of enforce it in an ad hoc fashion, but its policies, which I'm going to get to in a moment, only ended up exacerbating our problems at the border. So today we have a full-on crisis. 160% increase in the number of people illegally entering the United States from just last year. Well, the president is responding with a zero-tolerance message, which he reiterated today.
The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee-holding facility. Won't be. You look at what's happening in Europe, you look at what's happening in other places. We can't allow that to happen to the United States, not on my watch.
Now, the president is now doing what we should have been doing all along, prosecuting all border crashers. So if you enter the country illegally, you're breaking the law. The United States is not an open repatriation center where any indigent person in the world feels free to just walk in and assume that all of us will take care of all of them and their families. There's a process, and it has to be respected. Homeland Security Chief Kirstjen Nielsen said this today.
We are a compassionate country that has taken in millions of refugees. Since 1975, the United States has welcomed more than 3 million refugees from all over the world, and each year typically admits nearly 2/3 of the world's settled refugees. That is more than all other countries combined. We will not apologize for the job we do or for the job law enforcement does for doing the job that the American people expect us to do. Illegal actions have and must have consequences. No more free passes, no more get-out-of-jail-free cards.
Well, consistent with American law, when a party is arrested, your children are either sent to relatives or they become wards of the state. So since more illegal immigrants are rushing the border, more kids are being separated from their parents and temporarily housed in what are essentially summer camps, or as the San Diego Union Tribune described them today, as looking like basically boarding schools. Having lost the argument and, frankly, the last election, liberals have seized on the separated children and turned the entire image into a political weapon, attempting to emotionally manipulate the public perception of immigration enforcement.
Doctor, I've read that you have said that the separation, in your words, you said, is nothing less than government-sanctioned child abuse. Do you really think that this amounts to child abuse?
This does amount to child abuse.
And all I can say after talking to the people, watching the people, listening to the people, that the Statue of Liberty, I think, is weeping right now.
They've effectively orphaned thousands of children taken from their parents.
I'm heartbroken by what's happening, and I wonder what this means about the fabric of our country.
Now, why are all their hearts breaking in unison now? Why no tears for the victims of illegal immigrant crime, like the 14-year-old girl raped by Anastasio Eugenio Lopez Fabian just last month? Or did their heart break when another 14-year-old was left to die at the scene of a hit-and-run by Miguel Ibarra Cerda, a 21-year-old Mexican national? My friends, here's what you're not hearing. The government has very good reasons for separating these children from their family unit. The first being, they may not be the child's family at all. Children have been kidnapped, trafficked, and used by individuals who can then more easily slip into the country. The Obama administration's catch-and-release policy allowed people with children to enter the United States with only a promise to show up for a later hearing. A lot of them didn't show up, of course. The human traffickers and the drug cartels quickly seized on the weakness and exploited it, routinely trafficking people across the border using children at times as camouflage. Then, when Obama announced his DACA policy in 2012, it became yet another lure for illegal immigrants. The number of unaccompanied minors from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras surged between 2012 and 2014, check this out, by more than 400%. The number of unaccompanied children referred to the Office of Refugee Resettlement tripled between 2012 and 2017, from 13,625 to 40,810, according to the government statistics. From these immigrants come fresh recruits for MS-13 and other gangs that terrorize American cities from Maryland to California. We've talked to the officials who told us the stories. And in June of 2014, even the Washington Post had to admit that the unaccompanied minor surge was, quote, driven in large part by the perception that they will be allowed to stay under the Obama administration's immigration policies. Astoundingly, in the fiscal year 2014, the Border Patrol apprehended 68,445, quote, family units. Few, of course, were deported. Now, you throw in sanctuary cities, a lax amnesty program, and it's a wonder more illegals haven't come. So the Trump administration is now trying to pick up the pieces of this lawless immigration system after decades of governmental neglect. They're also trying to responsibly protect children in the government's care. Here are the circumstances under which they temporarily take custody of children. Number one, when DHS is unable to verify the relationship between the adult and the child. Number two, when DHS determines that a child may be at risk with the parent or the legal guardian. And three, when the parent or legal guardian is referred for criminal prosecution. Now, you enter into a normal port of entry rather than coming across the border illegally, and the chances are you're not going to be separated from your families. But most of these people are coming straight across the border as illegal immigrants, then claiming some type of status or asylum request. And this all goes back to a 1997 court ruling we've talked about before on the show called the Flores Settlement, which forbade the government from holding unaccompanied children for more than 20 days. Ditto for those traveling with family units. So unless you have a hearing within 20 days, they have to be released into the country. It's okay, unless you'd be swayed by the media reports that the children are housed in concentration camps or cages. The truth is the U.S. taxpayer is spending a lot on the care of these children, nearly $35,000 per year per child. They actually have a higher standard of living than the 13 million American children today currently living below the poverty line. It's about $24,000 per household. And as for the conditions of the facilities that the immigrant children are housed in, they live a lot better than some inner-city kids, or say the 11,472 homeless veterans living here in California.
Anything we've seen the government has provided. This doesn't feel like we're in the United States.
Department of Health and Human Services invited us inside because I think they wanted to show us, relatively speaking, how good the conditions are, I guess you could say. I mean, there are licensed professionals in there that are taking care of the children. There are not cages. There are not fences.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, the bottom line is these kids should be united with their parents, for sure, reunited with their parents back in their home countries. They should not be burdens to the United States taxpayer or thrown into a system of foster care by parents who think coming across the border with children will just assure them eventual legalized status. The president wants the separation to end as well.
President Trump has said this lawlessness cannot continue. We do not want to separate parents from their children. You can be sure of that. If we build a wall, we pass some legislation, we close some loopholes, we won't face these terrible choices.
And rather than trying to score political points, Democrats and Republicans, like Sessions is indicating, should come together. They should do what's best for the country, for the American citizen and the American workers and these immigrant children. The law should be changed so that the Border Patrol can turn away individuals and family units at the border if necessary. Today, only Mexicans who cross the border illegally can be turned back. That's absurd. Our Border Patrol doesn't exist as a wave-in facilitator for any group of supposed family members who mouth the script given to them by lawyers, non-governmental institutions, or other people in their home countries that they mouth for asylum. The American people are footing a really big bill for what is tantamount to a slow-rolling invasion of the United States. and we can no longer permit Central American countries to export their poverty and their desperation to our nation. Our own children, black, white, Asian, and Latino, need help too. In Detroit, here in LA, in Hartford, in Miami, and in Chicago. So why don't the Bushes and the Obamas and all these left-wing reporters emoting today at the White House and all these pro-amnesty Democrats and Republicans, why don't they ever write op-eds or cry for those kids? You know why? Because they think this over-the-top coverage and the misrepresentation of what's going on will hurt the man that they could not beat in November 2016, Donald Trump. And that's the angle.